Hey, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Turnaround Marriage. We are excited to dive in with a topic that is such a subtle difference. And we're going to talk about assuming versus anticipating in the context of marriage. And if you're out there and you've been married for maybe a few years or a number of years, and you're wondering like, oh my goodness, we know each other so well, but sometimes that actually can feel like it's a negative. This is exactly for you if that describes you tonight.
Yes. Hi, everybody. We are Scott and Rachel. We help committed Christian couples finally end the cycles of conflict, negativity, and disconnection and reclaim the love, passion, and playfulness that they once had. And so if you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and give us a thumbs up and make sure that you're in our Turnaround Marriage group on Facebook. Just search Turnaround Marriage. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our content and we can spend more time together.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we want to dive into the topic of anticipating versus assuming.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, like how, just real talk, like how do you get from early on in marriage where you're like afraid to even like acknowledge that you're going to the bathroom
Right.
to like, you know each other so well, like, you know, everything about each other. Yeah. And guys, and that, obviously that's some of the beauty of marriage early on. And as you grow older, like you're constantly getting to know each other better. And we were kind of joking earlier. And I said, yeah, it's like we get to know each other so well that your spouse knows that he's going to get his socks all the way to the hamper, but not quite in them.
Yeah, you're speaking from experience.
Maybe,
there, aren't you?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so true, Scott, when you say in the beginning of marriage, there's not really the familiarity yet.
Right.
And as you grow closer and as you are married longer and longer, you know each other better. And in fact, you know what buttons to push a little easier, right? You know their triggers, you know what sets them off, you know how to get a rise out of them if you are looking for that. And so sometimes that familiarity can just breed contentment or discontentment or a lot of other things. And it can become not a healthy thing in a marriage. It's
true. Well, just think about the familiarity, that relationship that you have. Like your parents don't even know you as well as your spouse can. Right. And does and normally should. And that familiarity, it can be such a beautiful thing. But if life starts happening and things get difficult, or maybe there's frustrations between the two of you, you can actually get to a place where you start assuming. Like you might get to the place where you already know ahead of time what their reaction is going to be. Mm-hmm. You already know that they're mad at you about some situation and it isn't even fair. And you can start assuming about the other person, what their motives are, where they're coming from, what they're trying to accomplish, and get to the place where it's almost not playing fair. Because you wouldn't want anybody just assuming of you what your motives were. But oftentimes, especially when there's a lot of hurt, that's exactly what happens in the context of marriage. It shouldn't be that way, but that's what happens.
Yeah. Like I picture the young wife who stays at home with the children. She's raising 2 or 3 or 4 or more young toddlers, babies, young children. She's just had a horrible day. Everything's gone wrong. The kids have been whining. Everybody's sick, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. The husband walks in the door and she's already assuming, oh, he's so lazy. He's just going to sit down in his chair and he's just going to, and I need help with these kids and he doesn't even care. And he's just going to withdraw and he's going to turn on the news and, and why doesn't he pay attention? And these are his kids too. And we just start to assume and we start to make these stories in our head. Right. And it's the meaning that we're making it when he sits down and he's exhausted and he's ready to put his feet up for a minute. It's like, have we already given him, have we already assigned motive to what he's doing? Have we already assigned blame, and instead of anticipating that he might be tired and need a break. And this is not to just say, you know what I'm saying? If you're both working, there's different dynamics.
Dynamics in every case. But it's also similar. If a husband, for example, sees his wife, and it's like, she's coming guns a-blazing at me. Like to assume that you understand from your perspective, you've seen that pattern in her, but you're assuming from a male's perspective why she's upset, when in reality, that's not really fair to her because she might be coming with a motive that's very different. Like you might assume that you're going to see the the bull's horns, maybe, so to speak. but that doesn't mean you understand where she's coming from, or that it's fair for you just to assume that of her, or that she's absolutely going to go down that path. Because if you showed up differently and gave to her what she needed, maybe a hug, maybe affirmation, encouragement, whatever it would be, that those horns might not even need to come out. Right. It could be a completely different thing.
Speaking from personal experience.
Maybe I wouldn't say that, but that is the difference between assuming and anticipating. Anticipating means that we know each other so well that instead of assuming motive, assigning motive, trying to blame them maybe even ahead of time, it's much more fair, it's much more loving, it's much more godly to anticipate what the other person might actually need. And if we get out of ourselves and begin to think of what the other person needs in that moment, that is anticipation, right?
Right. And that's really about laying the self down and saying, this is not about what I need in this moment. This is about what my spouse needs right now. And there's a big difference, because the difference can be whether I react to my spouse or whether I can respond in kindness, in love, in empathy, in compassion, right? And it's a very minor difference, but a big, huge results that will be different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Different outcome.
And I just love to give a great example of this. So not too long ago, we had a situation. No, it wasn't even a situation. We had an experience where it was highly emotional, good and bad. It was like the range of emotions were felt that day. Good way to put it. And I didn't even recognize in myself that I was starting to tank out. Like I'm an introvert, and I was starting to really get to the bottom of my reserves, and I didn't even see it. And Rachel did. Yeah. And it was awesome, because you're like, honey, let me drive. Don't you need to take a little rest here? I was like, nah, I'm fine. It's raining, and I like to drive when it's raining. No, honey, I think you're tired, and you were very gentle, very gracious, and you were anticipating what I didn't even see about myself, because you know me so well. And it was so loving, so God honoring, so sweet of you to be able to anticipate what I could not even see about myself, because you know me. And I thought, wow, what a great picture, guys. And we're not perfect at this by any stretch of the imagination, but the fact that you were not just assuming, well, I guess Scott's going to be going to sleep on me now, or he's going to disconnect from me. You didn't assume the worst about me. You anticipated what I needed. And that filled me with grace and love back towards you. And I didn't even know I needed that. And so, guys, that's exactly the way God's designed this. He's designed marriage for us to not to be just reacting to each other, which is what assuming does, but instead responding to each other and each other's needs. Much more godly, much more beautiful. And when you can get to that place, my goodness, we weren't there years ago.
No.
It wasn't even close to that. It was mostly assuming. When we get to that place, it is the harmony, the beauty of grace in the context of marriage that the way God designed it, that can be amazing.
And I'll tell you for us what changed. What changed is the way we decided to mind our minds, the way we decided to interpret what the other person was going to do, the way we decided how to process things. And we started to see things with a different set of glasses on. Yeah. And instead of assuming the worst, and instead of believing the worst about our spouse, we learned the skill set of really starting to reframe things, and really starting to say what else could be true, and really starting to ask ourselves, what does my spouse need in this situation? What are they crying out for with this behavior that is coming out, whether, whatever it is that's ugly, that's you don't like, right? Instead of assuming. And it's really about getting the right mindset around it, and really being able to mind our minds and guard our thoughts. The Bible tells us that as a man thinks, so he is. And it's so important, because what we think about is what is going to come out of our mouths. It's the attitude that's going to show up in our marriage. Right. And then it's the behaviors and habits. And then it's your destiny. And so it's very, very important to be able to get that skill set. And honestly, when you're on the inside of the jar cannot read the outside of the label. And when you're in the middle of that, sometimes if you don't have that skill set, you cannot see it. You cannot see what you cannot see. You don't know what you don't know. You're just assuming because this is how it always is. And it's like a self-fulfilling thing.
Right. And there's folks out there that are listening tonight, guys, I'm sure, because this was us. And you're realizing, okay, Scott, Rachel, this sounds good. I understand what you're saying. It's absolutely better to be responsive, to be anticipatory and not reactionary, and thinking about what the other person needs. But what do I do if there's been a lot of hurts? What if there's been a lot that's happened? What if there's so many things that have been said and there's a lot of water under the bridge? What if there's even mistrust at this point because we've been assuming the worst about each other? And in some ways the marriage, it's built up some resentment over time. What do we do then?
Not just, maybe they might not have just built up the resentment, but maybe they live in a perpetual state of resentment, or frustration or anger, or you are allowing that root of bitterness to grow.
Right.
And Ephesians tells us to rip out and pull that root out. Right. So that's the thing. It's like, you might be in that situation where you've been assuming for so long and it's been self-fulfilling, and it's like, see, he's that way. See, she's that way, and she doesn't care. And he's so, whatever it is. And when you perpetuate that over time, that's when you really start to get into the deep ruts, and it's very difficult to get out of that on your own.
Absolutely. And I would just add to that, it can feel like this, I think. It's like, but she knows me. He knows me so well. How come she's not anticipating what I need? How come he doesn't see this? And you're looking at each other and it's like, I guess they don't even love me anymore. I guess they don't even care. So it can be even worse when you're recognizing these patterns and you know that the other person cares, but they're not acting in a way. And it's almost like you're double assuming, you can almost say.
Right.
Yeah. What were you going to add to that?
No, I was just going to say, it's just when you get into that vicious cycle, the rut gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you just start to live frustrated. And then you just start to anticipate that they're going to do the worst,
Yeah.
And it's not God honoring. And you guys, we can help you break out of that. That's the beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You can learn the skill of anticipating versus assuming. You can learn the skill on how to respond kindly versus just reacting to whatever comes out. Learning how to regulate your own emotional state. It's a huge game changer.
It's true. And just to share what you said earlier was so spot on, that the inside of the jar cannot read the outside of the label. This is the heart of why a lot of people get stuck. They can recognize the vicious cycles, but they don't know how to get out of them. They're not recognizing maybe the ways that they're assuming the worst, or the ways that they're believing the worst about the other person, and not operating in a place of anticipating. And they're really reacting, and they don't even realize it. And so oftentimes, guys, that's why people need outside help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength to say, wait a minute, we don't even understand some of the dynamics that are going in the context of our marriage. And we need someone else to help identify that. It's like when we have a serious plumbing problem, it's not weird to call the plumber. I don't know how that stuff works underneath the ground. I need to call somebody. Of course we do. And for the greatest investment in our lives, our marriages, why would we not also want to invest in them? Of course we would. So guys, what I want to offer to you tonight is we do a free breakthrough call for anybody that's out there and they recognize, boy, Scott, Rachel, I hear what you guys are saying. And I realize, yes, so much of this is resonating with us, but we don't know how to break out of it. We don't really understand the cycles here. We do this breakthrough call where we help you guys identify what is not working in your marriage, talk about what you dream it could be and what God designed it to be, and a path to get there. And if we can help you guys, we're absolutely going to make that path clear. And if not, we're going to point you in the right direction. We're going to love you, serve you, and you're going to know exactly what you need to do next to get back the marriage that you're hoping for. So guys, if that's you, we want to encourage you to go to turnaroundmarriage.com/call. Book a call, pick a time, fill out a questionnaire. I don't think we have, maybe there's one slot left this week and a few next week. We do fill up very quickly. So make sure right now, when you get a chance to hear this, to go to turnaroundmarriage.com/call. And we will look forward to getting to know you and helping you, serving you on that call.
Yes. So going back real quick to that example
of
when I was trying to anticipate, I was just realizing, in the past, I would have assumed that you were doing it on purpose. You were disconnecting on purpose. And I had all these stories. See, he's weak. He's this, he's that. And he doesn't love me. If he cared, he would not do that. But instead, I have learned to reframe things. And it was like, oh, his tank is empty. What can we do to fill it up? It's like, I'm not going to get mad at you that your tank is empty. Let's rest and get it filled up and figure out what it is you need. And so again, I'm not trying to say this to puff myself up, just to say this is the skill set that we've learned and that we teach our clients to do. It is a true game changer. So if that's you out there and you're sick and tired of staying in that frustrated state, staying in these vicious cycles, always assuming the worst and reacting out of anger, we want to encourage you, go ahead and book that call at turnaroundmarriage.com/call. Scott will serve the heck out of you.
I'm so glad you anticipated that I might forget that too. So that was really good.
You didn't forget anything.
No, you're spot on, Rachel. It's like getting out of where we were at one point and the cycles of hurt and dysfunction and assuming versus where we can now anticipate things.
It's a lot more fun.
It's a whole lot more fun. And it's
guys.
a whole lot more of a taste of what things ought to be.
Yes.
So we're on the journey just like everybody else. But my goodness, my friends, when we can anticipate versus assume, everything is different.
Yeah.
So we wish you all the best. Hope you have a great night. Talk soon.
Bye.